Hi everybody, this is Dino Chris from Prehistoric Facts, and this is a special episode, and today the chosen dinosaur is Majungasaurus, one of my favorite carnivorous dinosaurs, and I get to talk about this dinosaur, at least, you know. Alright, and in this, if you could see here, that this is probably what Majungasaurus would probably look like, and its length is 20 feet long, and it weighed 1 ton. And is actually found in Madagascar, and it's actually lived in the late Cretaceous. And considering of the size of Majungasaurus, it actually is considered to be a medium-sized carnivorous dinosaur. Considering that the height is probably between 8 to 9 feet tall, so it's not very large by any standards compared to like Tyrannosaurus Rex or Spinosaurus or Giganotosaurus. And when we actually look at Majungasaurus, it's actually part of the family of carnivorous dinosaurs called the Abelisaurs. Now the Abelisaurs actually have very short skulls, very small arms compared to their body size, stand on 2 legs of course, and very thick skulls. So they have very, very thick skulls. So they're pretty much like a brute. They're pretty relied on strength to actually take down their prey. And when we look at the anatomy of Majungasaurus, we actually see, if we actually start at the skull is just so awkward looking, and if you actually look at it very closely, you can just see there's like pits and like kind of bumpy looking kind of structure. So it's a very weird looking skull, very, very weird. I got the chance to see the skull and also the skeleton of Majungasaurus, and the skull I've seen at the Field Museum, and the skeleton I've actually seen not too long ago, which was pretty much like a few weeks back when I actually went to see the Ultimate Dinosaurs exhibit in the Science Museum of Minnesota. And when we actually look at when we look at this skull, we actually see there's a little bit of like a horn on its forehead. So there's been a lot of speculation of what it could be used for, but probably mainly for display. But also since that Abelisaurs have very thick skulls, they probably use them in combat. They're pretty much like males fighting for territory or for mates or food, and probably the females would actually have it though too. I would think the females would have it, but probably not brightly colored. But probably just use it for like territorial disputes and also to protect its young. And if any of you actually seen the show called Jurassic Fight Club, which actually was dated back to 2007. Love that show, and the first ever episode was actually about Majungasaurus, but back then it was actually called Majungatholus. But now, since that, because when they actually discovered Majungasaurus, Majungasaurus was actually named first based on the fragments of fossils that they actually found in Madagascar. But then, like a year later, when they actually went back to Madagascar, they found part of a skull, and they thought it would belong to a pachycephalosaur. So, and many of you know that pachycephalosaurs have those dome-headed skulls, technically called the bone-headed dinosaurs. And when we look at these dinosaurs, but then later on, probably 2008 or 2009 is when they actually realized that, wait a minute, Majungatholus and Majungasaurus have the same bones and the same skull fragments, same bones. So it's pretty much a same species, and it's actually just the same species that was just found there. And so they actually just decided that what was the first to be named, and it was actually Majungasaurus. So Majungasaurus stayed, Majungatholus out. And since that Majungasaurus is actually, with its name, it's actually called Majunga lizard, and it was actually found like a few miles away from a town called Mahajunga or Majunga, whatever it's called down there. And when we actually look at the skull of Majungasaurus as well, we actually see that it's very thick and actually could produce a very powerful bite. And so when we look at the teeth of the Belisaurus, we actually see that they're very blade-like, but they're strong. They're very strong. So it's pretty much a very strong bite, a very powerful animal. And these dinosaurs actually were designed to grab and hang on. They were not really designed to actually like take a bite, make a bite to get a slashing bite to bleed the animal to death. But still, they can do that. But I mean, it's just with how their skulls are designed. Their skulls are designed to hang on and produce a very serious wound to the prey item or the animal. And since Majungasaurus is also the first dinosaur to actually show evidence of cannibalism, and cannibalism is rare in the animal kingdom, but it does happen. It's just that whenever there's not enough food, the carnivores actually have to find another source of food, and if they don't find any of their prey, then they pretty much prey on themselves. So pretty much they prey on their own species. And so cannibalism, it's gruesome, but even though it's actually rare in the animal kingdom, but even though it does happen. So, and technically Majungasaurus is nicknamed the cannibal dinosaur. But since it actually lived on Madagascar, it's probably pretty common to actually have cannibalism. Since when you're isolated in a small area, you don't have enough prey sources, and also you actually don't have enough wide-ranging of area where you can actually find more prey items. So it would actually pretty much have to find other sources to actually get its energy and its food. So pretty much they probably did eat each other from time to time, but not very commonly though. It would actually be probably 10% of the time they would probably hunt each other down and kill each other. But mainly for territorial disputes, they would probably will eat whoever they actually killed. Because since dinosaurs are actually not really as intelligent as mammals, but they are pretty close. But you see, since Abelisaurs have a very primitive brain compared to the Tyrannosaurs and the Allosaurs and even the Raptors, we actually see that these dinosaurs probably had the same brain capacity as probably on crocodiles or otherwise monitor lizards. So it would actually pretty much just have reptilian lineage to actually show its behavior. But even though it would actually move like a bird and actually probably almost behave like a bird, but I would say that since they probably are following the reptilian lineage, they probably are actually gonna kill each other and actually eat each other a lot more. Even though there are the other fossils that have been found with carnivorous dinosaurs that actually did eat each other to actually have a source of food. Tyrannosaurs are very common though too, because when we look at bones of Tyrannosaurus rex, we see that there are bite marks on them, and there are some vertebrae that have been cut in half, pretty much bitten away by another Tyrannosaur, which is Tyrannosaurus rex, of course. But Majungasaurus, since the most common prey item would actually be sauropods, and these sauropods would not be very large at all. They would probably be small-sized sauropods compared to say Seismosaurus, Argentinosaurus, or any of those kind of sauropods. So these kinds of sauropods would actually be small in comparison to the others. But I did get to see the skeleton of a sauropod that was found in Madagascar, and that was in the Ultimate Dinosaurs exhibit in the Science Museum in Minnesota again. And it had the Majungasaurus skeleton right next to it. It looked like it was actually preying on the sauropod, which is probably reasonable. But also, when we actually look at the Abelisaurs, since they do have short arms compared to the body size, they have the smallest arms compared to body size than any other dinosaur in its time in the Mesozoic era. Now, we all make fun of Tyrannosaurus Rex for having very short arms, but pretty much I think we need to make fun of the Abelisaurs a little bit more because they have the stubby arms. They have the really, really stubby arms. Not useful in any way whatsoever. And since that these dinosaurs probably actually did use their heads as a weapon to kill and also attack. So they're pretty much just going to have to use their teeth in order to actually kill their prey. And in the case for Jurassic Fight Club, I think they would actually, since that they probably did actually did a little bit over the top of actually probably of how they would defend themselves. Using their tail would make no sense. I mean, yeah, they could use it in a way, but you see, it would not be useful as a defensive weapon, because you see, theropod dinosaurs, when we actually look at them, their tails are not really designed to whack each other that much. It's because you see, their tails are mainly designed for balance, and since their musculature is not as broad as sauropods or stegosaurs and ankylosaurs, they're pretty much just going to have to rely on their teeth and claws in order to actually defend themselves and attack. So that's pretty much what they're going to do. And then when we actually look at Majungasaurus, there is a possibility that there is actually inbreeding going on, since it did live in a small area. Now, inbreeding for younger people means is that when you're actually finding a mate and there's trying to find someone from the opposite gender is very reduced. And also that means whoever the opposite gender you meet could be really closely related to, like a brother, sister, cousin, mother, or father. And that is really, really a big problem, because since when you actually are inbreeding, you have, and there's nasty side effects with inbreeding. You have not a very good metabolism. You're more likely to get diseases very quickly. You have a weaker bone structure, and so it would actually not be very. So you're pretty much actually gonna. So then pretty much it's actually these animals would die very quickly. Probably die within probably within the first year of after hatching. But also another problem with inbreeding is that there is a possibility of creating mutations. So Majungasaurus could actually be that case where it probably was an animal that was a result of inbreeding, so that's why it actually had that ugly looking face, and it actually would have been not the prettiest animal in the jungle whatsoever. So it would actually just it would just almost look like a lizard that if you just combined Elephant Man to like a crocodile, and that would actually look ugly. It would just be very, very ugly. But even though Majungasaurus with males, they would be brightly colored, since if you're actually living in a forested area, you need to display your colors. And females would be duller colored, and we don't know we don't know the variations of Majungasaurus by the opposite gender. So don't have enough specimens of Majungasaurus to actually indicate anything of which is male and which is female. I mean, we can actually make a case that, say, the more bumpier skulls are the males and the less bumpier skulls are the females. But also size is actually going to be a very big problem as well, because also we can't even actually know what the possibility of the different sizes of these animals were in terms of like males and females. Were the males bigger or were the females bigger? I would say the males would probably be bigger, because if they are relying on a reptilian lineage, the males are usually larger than the females. There are opposites of that. You know, there are reptiles that actually do have females bigger than males, but that's rare. But even though when we look at Tyrannosaurus Rex, there is a possibility that the females are bigger than the males. So probably the females were actually the big aggressors. So they pretty much were the most aggressive and would actually have the upper hand against the males. And also the case, but then when we actually look at the brain of Majungasaurus, it has a good sense of smell, good sense of hearing, but poor eyesight. So that is actually a big issue if you're going to be a hunter, because you see, if you actually have a good sense of skull, and since it's actually almost V-shaped, it is actually going to be hard to get binocular vision. So it actually be both eyes would be facing side to side. So it actually they'll just be looking from side to side. But you see, when they have to, their binocular vision is very, very limited, and you see it would have to rely on an animal standing very still in order to actually see something right in front of it. So it would not be very useful for that animal to actually probably hunt very successfully if it had poor vision. But since that vultures in Africa, they have a good sense of smell, but you see, they can hunt on occasion. It's just that they would just hunt smaller prey. And when we actually see that the behaviors are probably going to be mixed of reptile and bird, it would actually be more reptilian than bird. So you would see some bird-like behaviors, but also would actually be using reptilian behavior, like I said before. And of course, since that it did live in the late Cretaceous, it probably did actually succumb to the asteroid impact in the Yucatan Peninsula that actually see all the debris blocking out the sun. And also there's the huge volcanic eruptions that were actually in India that also could have actually played a part as well in the dinosaurs' extinction. So it actually just succumbed to the same fate as the other dinosaurs, like in North America, Europe, and Asia, and even Australia, and in Antarctica, Africa, you name it. And they would all just succumb to the great extinction in the KT boundary of asteroid impact and possibly the volcanic eruptions in India. So it actually just succumb to the mass extinction that everybody will always know as the KT extinction. Around 66, pretty much like around 65.6 million years ago. So it is actually pretty much around that time. Alright, that's it for now, and next week will be an answer questions episode, so get those questions ready, and I'll actually answer them next week. And make sure to actually keep your questions short and to the point. You can email those questions to dinochris71@gmail.com, and also you can actually post the questions on the comment section of a Facebook post on the Facebook page Prehistoric Facts with Dino Chris. And also you can follow me on Twitter at CSGRALL. And you can actually follow me there. I post some pretty cool stuff on there. I favorite a lot of stuff and also retweet a bunch of stuff too. So I do post pictures and that kind of stuff. And also, make sure to take care of the people around you. And also for younger people out there, make sure to listen to your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. Those are the best motivation you can have for a good education. It's very important to have a good education, because when you have a good education, you get a good job in the future. Alright, that's it for now, and I'll see you guys next week.